So we need to get back on our ship and cross the short distance of the Mediterranean between Sicily and Tunis and start visiting Carthage. Earlier, I told you the story of Dido. Now let's continue the story a little bit. Dido is said by some to have had a grand niece by the name of Jezebel. You probably recognize her name. And it was Dido that took that ox hide and cut it into thin strips and circled Bersa Hill with it and made that the core of the city of Carthage. Well, we're moving on to the Bersa Hill now, and we're going to be looking out over the ruins that are there. To orientate you as to the city, the Punic city of Carthage, here's a map of the city, the way that it looked before the Roman times, and this is the location of Bersa Hill. The Punic city of Carthage was destroyed by the Romans. However, the Romans rebuilt the city, and you would expect Roman Carthage to be in better shape. But even the Roman city of Carthage is mostly gone now. It is now almost impossible to say what the Carthaginian, the Punic Carthaginian city of Carthage used to look like. However, this drawing may help you to visualize it. When the Romans destroyed the city, they are said to have sown the area with salt so that nothing would grow there again. But in fact, it was a fairly short period of time before the Romans themselves decided that the port of Carthage was too important to ignore, and they reestablished a colony there. It's said that the Romans removed tons of material from this hill, virtually leveling the top of it. Nevertheless, there are some elements of the old Punic city left in the Carthaginian ruins. We're moving now to the Topfet. This is the children's cemetery. This is the location of the Topfet. The Topfet is the place where the Carthaginians are said to have taken their children and passed them through fire to their gods. In other words, we're talking about a place of child sacrifice, perhaps. We know that the Romans said that the Carthaginians believed in child sacrifice, and the Romans were appalled by human sacrifice. What we're not sure of is how often the Carthaginians did that, or whether the children perhaps were already dead when they were sacrificed, or whether they were perhaps the children of slaves. Let us return now to the situation at the beginning of the Second Punic War. The Romans have occupied Italy and the islands around the peninsula. The Carthaginians, on the other hand, hold North Africa and Spain. Because the Carthaginian navy is relatively weak, Hannibal invades overland. But even so, the Carthaginian navy is not negligible.
The Phoenician colony had evolved into an unrivaled naval power. Their sleek fighting galleys were the ultimate warships of the ancient world. With multiple levels of rowers and a bow encased in bronze for ramming, they could wreak havoc on enemy fleets. But even more impressive was the harbor where they were birthed. Constructed at the pinnacle of Carthaginian power, the harbor boasted sections for both commercial and naval vessels. Surrounding a tower on a man-made island were slips for more than 150 warships. This was the heart of their maritime power.
We are going now to the naval harbor, the center of Punic power. This is a short distance from the Bersa Hill, and this is where that naval harbor was located. This is where the Carthaginian Pentagon was located. And here they have unearthed where some of the naval slips were. This one right here is only about 15 feet wide or so, indicating that the ships were quite narrow. It is from here that the Carthaginians controlled their military. And during the Second Punic War, when Hannibal was bottled up in the boot of Italy, the Romans invaded North Africa, and they recalled Hannibal to defend the city. That results in the Battle of Zama, Hannibal's most important military conflict, one in which he has his elephants back, citizens of Carthage with him, as well as his veteran army. But at the Battle of Zama, the Numidian cavalry, the Berber cavalry that Hannibal always depended on, largely deserted him and joined the other side. And the Romans had figured out how to handle elephants. They created gaps in the Roman line so that the elephants could charge through them, and the elephants were dispatched when they got into the rear area. The Carthaginians lost the war, the Second Punic War, but the city was not yet destroyed. There was to be a third Punic War.
The two ancient superpowers battled for over 100 years in what were called the Punic Wars. In 146 BC, Rome finally routed their navy and sacked Carthage, destroying what had started 700 years earlier as a Phoenician colony.
The Carthaginians defending the city were attacked by 3 Roman legions. The Carthaginians were proud and brave, but they couldn't hold. They were massacred. Arab women stripped them of their tunics and their swords and lances. The soldiers lay naked in the sun.
Rome now ruled the Mediterranean, and its ships sailed freely throughout the sea.